They were a respected military couple with 2 bright teenagers and a beautiful suburban home. But in January 2011, police walked into a scene so disturbing it defied belief. Inside that Florida house, 2 children were dead, and their killer wasn't a stranger. The Schenecker family lived in a spacious 2-story house inside a gated community in Tampa Palms, Florida, a quiet suburban neighborhood surrounded by manicured lawns, upscale amenities, and some of the city's best schools. It was the kind of place people moved to in search of safety and comfort. Julie Powers was born on January 13, 1961, in Muscatine, Iowa. Her dad was an electrical engineer, and her mother stayed home with the children before later working as a realtor. Julie was the oldest of 3 siblings. She was pretty and popular among her peers, who wanted to be like her. Athletic and outgoing, she played volleyball for the University of Northern Iowa. Her teammate Lisa Pilch recalled, "She had a strong personality but still was a lot of fun to be with. When you were with Julie, you were laughing a lot. Still, her strong personality and drive to win sometimes led to conflict. She didn't hesitate to call out teammates if she felt they weren't putting in enough effort during practice." Not long after graduating in 1982, she joined the U.S. Army and was later sent to the Army Language School in Monterey, California, to study Russian. She became a Russian linguist in Army intelligence and was promoted to the rank of sergeant. In 1987, she was stationed in Munich, where she served as a human intelligence collector, interviewing Eastern European refugees and gathering intelligence from them. While coaching the men's Army volleyball team, Julie met Parker Schenecker, then a senior leader and strategist in U.S. intelligence and later a U.S. Army colonel. The two connected quickly, and it didn't take long for their relationship to turn romantic. Parker said, "The more time we spent around each other, the more we fell in love." In 1994, they got married, and Julie left the Army to stay at home with their daughter Calyx, who was born in Germany, and their son Bo, born in Hawaii in 1997, after Parker was transferred to the U.S. The family moved several times before eventually buying a house on Royal Park Court in the Ashley Reserve gated community of Tampa, Florida. Calyx was 16 and Bo was 13. The family appeared happy and accomplished, with images of boating trips, ski vacations, and smiling holiday portraits. Neighbors saw Julie at school events, picking up the kids from practice or walking around the neighborhood. Teachers remembered Calyx as bright, artistic, and easygoing, known for her Harry Potter obsession, a dream to run a marathon in Thailand, and bold fashion sense. Her coach in track and field described her as the fastest freshman he ever coached. An English teacher said, "She was exceptionally sweet. She was respectful. She was the kind of girl that if I had a daughter and I could pick which one, I would choose her." Bo was a lively soccer player with a big heart, known to reach out to new kids and make them feel welcome. Even those who interacted more closely with Julie Schenecker described her as attentive. Calyx's track coach remembered a time she brought him a birthday cake. He said Julie always showed up for team suppers and pickups. He never heard Calyx say a bad word about her. To teachers, the kids never hinted at anything being wrong. Daisy Questel, who taught Bo at Liberty Middle School, said he never missed an assignment, never got a bad grade, and never gave off any sense of home trouble. "You know how kids are," she said. "They say anything, but I never heard anything." And yet behind the smiles and routine, something was deeply broken. Julie Schenecker's mental health issues weren't new. She had struggled with mental illness for most of her adult life. Julie had been diagnosed with depression, schizoaffective disorder, which caused a loss of contact with reality, and bipolar disorder with psychotic features, marked by extreme mood swings. She had reportedly attempted to take her life multiple times, including once in adolescence, and in 2001, she spent 9 months in a psychiatric facility. Over the years, she had been prescribed a wide range of medications, including mood stabilizers, antidepressants, and antipsychotics. Julie told Parker about her mental health struggles only after their wedding, even though she had been diagnosed with depression before. However, Parker was incredibly supportive. By late 2010, she had been in rehab for substance abuse and was on multiple medications. Still, no one could have imagined that just weeks later, the family's illusion would collapse in the most horrific way. Her husband, Parker Schenecker, knew she was unwell. In an email sent to family members just days before the murders, he wrote that Julie had the judgment of a 10-year-old and admitted she had hit him and the children, and that despite his efforts, she remained unstable. He also wrote, "Julie was broken before I met her. I didn't break her, but have been patiently working behind the scenes to pick up the pieces." Julie's instability was no longer just a private struggle. In November 2010, she rear-ended a trailer while driving her Mercedes. The responding officers noted she had dilated pupils, slurred speech, and other signs of drug impairment. But before a blood test could be taken, she was discharged from the hospital. Just 2 days later, her daughter Calyx confided in a counselor that her mother had struck her in the face. Police were called, and Calyx told investigators that Julie had hit her with an open hand for about 30 seconds while they were driving home from cross-country practice. Julie acknowledged the incident, claiming Calyx had insulted her and called her disgusting and told her, "You're not my parent." Julie said that she and Calyx had argued after her daughter stopped at a grocery store and refused to show her what she had bought. Though there were no visible injuries and no charges were filed, the moment hinted at something far more troubling. There were other moments that, in hindsight, seemed to offer warnings. Parker said he couldn't rely on Julie anymore and forbade her from driving the children. Julie was also growing more isolated. Her behavior at a 2009 college reunion struck an old friend as strange. Her eyes looked distant, almost vacant, but her friend chalked it up to fatigue. Julie's private writings showed a woman unraveling, her thoughts spiraling toward something violent. Yet she continued moving through the world, shopping, smiling, waiting. Calyx was still going to school, still trying to live a normal teenage life. Bo was playing soccer and joking with teachers. Julie was still showing up at practice. Then, just days before the murders, she walked into a gun store and bought a .38 caliber revolver. When told she had to wait 3 days to pick it up, her journal entry reflected not hesitation, but frustration. She wrote that the delay had postponed the massacre. No one knew what she meant by that. Not yet. The days were counting down, and the mask was beginning to slip. The week before January 27, 2011, unfolded quietly, at least on the surface. 50-year-old Julie Schenecker picked up the revolver she had purchased earlier. Despite that chilling line, life inside the Schenecker home continued in appearance as usual. Calyx was focused on school, art, and sports. Bo was his usual cheerful self, making friends laugh at school and talking about soccer. Neither child gave any outward sign that they sensed danger looming. Julie, meanwhile, was planning. According to evidence later presented at trial, she had been writing extensively in her spiral-bound journal in the lead-up to the murders. She called it a Saturday massacre, though the killings would happen earlier than that. The pages were filled with erratic thoughts, references to her children being sassy and mouthy, and fragmented expressions of anger and detachment. She debated practical matters, like how many bullets it might take, whether to turn on the lights to disorient her son, and what to do afterward. Then she wrote, "I'm nervous." She also wrote about taking her own life. In her notes, she described a 3-part plan, carefully detailed, yet never fully carried out. In those final days, no one around her fully realized what she was preparing for. But inside that home, Julie was moving step by step toward an irreversible decision. The entries in her notebook grew darker, more focused. She had made up her mind. By Thursday, January 27th, the clock had run out, and no one, not her children, not her family that thought they knew her, could have predicted what she would do next. On January 27th, Julie Schenecker got into the family minivan with her 13-year-old son, Bo. He had soccer practice that afternoon. The drive should have been routine, but something about Julie was different. She had her newly purchased .38 caliber revolver hidden in her purse. Julie was behind the wheel, Bo beside her. At some point on the road, she reached into her bag, then shot at the windshield. He asked her to put away the gun. Instead, she shot twice. Bo never made it to practice. He was still buckled into the passenger seat when she pulled back into the garage. He didn't move. She left him there. Then Julie walked into the house. 16-year-old Calyx was upstairs in her bedroom, sitting at her computer, doing homework. Julie went upstairs with the revolver and approached her daughter from behind. The girl didn't look back. Julie shot her twice. Calyx never saw it coming. After the shooting, Julie moved her daughter's body onto her bed and covered her with a blanket. Then she came to Bo, still strapped into his seat. She covered his body with a blanket too. In her writing, Julie lamented not being able to move him. "He's so cold and hard," she wrote. adding that she wished she could put him in her bed, where he had often slept happily. Then she sent an email to her husband. "Get home soon. We're waiting for you." After that, she sat in a lounge chair by the pool, smoking and drinking beer and wine as she wrote about what had happened and the reasons behind it. Then, she returned to her 3-part plan of taking her life. She started with medications, but passed out. That night, the house stayed silent. Calix and Bo were dead, but no one else knew yet. They would all find out the next morning, when one worried phone call would bring police to the front door. What they would see inside would haunt Tampa for years to come. The morning of Friday, January 28, 2011, began like any other, but by midday, the silence surrounding the Schenecker home would be broken. It started with a call from Julie's mother, who lived in Texas. She had received a deeply unsettling email from her daughter the day before. Julie had complained about the children, expressing despair. She wrote she was tired of them talking back, and that it would all be over soon. Julie's mother was too far away to intervene directly. She tried calling, but neither Julie nor the children answered the phone. Worried, the grandmother contacted authorities in Tampa and requested a wellness check. Just before noon, 2 officers arrived at the house on Royal Park Court. The front door was locked, but the officers noticed a note taped to it. It read, "We all went to New York." That alone was suspicious. Police forced their way inside. Julie never turned the gun on herself. When police later found her, she was still alive, dazed and groggy, lying on the back patio of the house. Officers saw blood on her white bathrobe. There was a bottle of pills nearby, and there was a revolver. She had not followed through on her full plan. She was alive and under arrest. In the upstairs bedroom, they found 16-year-old Calix lying on her bed, also covered with a blanket. There were no signs of struggle. She had been shot twice in the head. The officers moved around to the side of the house and into the garage. That's when they saw the second body. 13-year-old Bo was still seated in the passenger seat, covered with a blanket. He had been killed in the same way as his sister. When asked why she did it, Julie said Bo had talked back, and Calix was mouthy. She also claimed she had saved them. Police also discovered a spiral notebook that documented each step she had taken from the moment she picked up the revolver. In the hours that followed, the news began to spread. Classes at King High School and Liberty Middle School were interrupted. Teachers and students broke down in tears. The children's friends were inconsolable and couldn't believe what had happened. 52-year-old Parker Schenecker, deployed in Qatar at the time, was contacted by the military. Arrangements were made for his immediate return. He would later describe the moment he learned of the murders as the most shattering of his life. For investigators, the evidence was overwhelming. Ballistics confirmed the gun matched the wounds. Julie had made no attempt to flee or hide what she had done. Her writings were not only confessions, but premeditated blueprints. In May 2011, Parker Schenecker divorced his wife and later filed a wrongful death lawsuit against her after a disagreement over how the family's assets should be divided. He took that step specifically to reduce the funds Julie could access for her legal defense after she requested money for that purpose. Meanwhile, Julie remained in custody, charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder. Prosecutors announced they would seek a life sentence. The death penalty was briefly considered, but ultimately ruled out because of her severe mental health issues. But the question remained, what drove a mother to destroy her own family? And would justice bring any sense of understanding? Julie Schenecker's trial began in April 2014, more than 3 years after the murders of her children. Julie pleaded not guilty. From the beginning, her defense did not deny that she had killed Calix and Bo. Instead, her attorneys argued that she was legally insane at the time of the murders. They claimed she suffered from bipolar disorder with psychotic features, and that her mental illness had rendered her incapable of understanding right from wrong. The jury heard Julie's recorded confession to Tampa police, in which she admitted to shooting her children, then asked, "Are my kids coming in later?" The prosecution disagreed. They painted a picture of a woman who meticulously planned the killings, delayed only by the state's 3-day waiting period to purchase a firearm. Assistant State Attorney Jay Pruner argued that Julie was not out of touch with reality, but rather consumed by resentment and a desire to punish her children for perceived disrespect. She decided the punishment should be death, he told the jury. After the shooting, Julie said, "This is the worst thing I've ever done. I feel just horrible." That statement shows she understood it was wrong. In her journals, she had planned the murders. and even referred to them as a massacre. The journals were read aloud in court, giving the jury a glimpse into her state of mind. In one entry, she described how Calyx had become mean and how she had to make this stop. She wrote that her daughter called her useless and said, "You're never going to amount to anything. You're not my mother." The prosecution said there's no question about Julie's mental illness, but most people with mental illness do not become homicidal. The prosecution also pointed to the careful way she had staged the scene, leaving a note on the door claiming the family had gone to New York, and placing her supplies for taking her life nearby. These details were not the actions of someone delusional, but someone fully aware of what she had done. Prosecutor Jay Pruner said she was a narcissist who had killed out of anger at her husband because she felt abandoned, betrayed, and despondent. She was upset that her husband had placed her in a rehab facility during Thanksgiving and was trying to get her to quit drinking. In his emails, he called her a disaster and said she needed to go to a treatment center to regain stability. Julie wrote to her husband, "I could have done this any time, but luckily you weren't here. I might have taken you out too. That would have been a crying shame." The fact that Julie lied to the gun store clerk, saying she needed the gun for self-defense, shows she knew her true intentions were unlawful. Psychiatrists were brought in on both sides. One expert testified that Julie had delusions about protecting her children from suffering. Another argued that while she was mentally ill, she was not legally insane at the time of the crime. Throughout the trial, Julie sat silently. Her face remained blank, emotionless. At times, she cried. Footage showed Schenecker trembling after her arrest. A clinical pharmacologist explained that the shaking was caused by tardive dyskinesia, an involuntary neurological condition triggered by the sudden discontinuation of psychotropic medication. Dr. Eldra Solomon testified that Julie Schenecker had a long history of abuse and trauma. She explained that Julie had been harmed by a neighbor around age 6, and again at 17. By the time she was 12, she had begun thinking about ending her life and had attempted it twice. Dr. Solomon also shared that Julie had hoped to have 6 children, but Parker wanted only 2. After Beau was born, he underwent a vasectomy, a decision that left Julie heartbroken. "You're a failure," she wrote in her diary. She also wrote, "My meds never kicked in. Maybe that would have made a difference. I couldn't do AA. I'm not an alcoholic. I didn't need a detox. I should have gone to the psych ward instead. I don't believe I could ever recover or make up for my failures over the years." According to Dr. Eldra Solomon, Julie was experiencing delusional thinking in the weeks leading up to the murders. She irrationally believed she had a brain tumor, thought her daughter was also bipolar, and feared her son would be harmed in the same way she had been at ages 6 and 17. For months, she spoke to her therapist about wanting to become pregnant again at age 49, with the intention of placing the baby for adoption. Dr. Solomon testified that, in her view, sane people don't kill their children, and stated firmly, "I think without a doubt she was insane at the time of the shooting and during the week prior." In her journal, Julie expressed that she believed taking her children's lives was an act of protection. She feared they might inherit her depression or bipolar disorder, or take their own lives. She wrote, "If you're wondering why I decided to take out the kids, it was to protect them from embarrassing them for the rest of their lives. It was my time to go. Heaven is waiting for me, for I have done my job on this earth. The best job I ever had was bringing up my babies. That's why I had to bring them on with me. It's too possible they've inherited the DNA and lived their lives depressed or bipolar. I believe I've saved them from the pain." One of the most disturbing details came from Julie's psychiatric evaluation. She told her doctor that after it was over, she tried to manipulate Calyx's face into a smile. She explained, "I just wanted to see her smile one more time." Solomon said Julie was very angry at herself for failing to take her own life. Investigators had also found a "do not resuscitate" note in her house. During the trial, Schenecker interrupted the proceedings by shouting "liar" at a psychiatrist who testified that he had warned her not to consume alcohol while taking medication for her bipolar disorder. Judge Emmett Battles halted the hearing and warned Schenecker that she would be restrained if she disrupted the court again. Julie's attorney said her husband's negligence led to these children being left alone with their mother at a time when the dad, according to his own emails, could clearly tell she was a danger to herself and others. In one of his emails, he wrote that Julie spent a lot of time in bed, had slurred speech and very slow physical movements and reaction. He also said, "The kids tell me they don't feel safe when Julie drives. Beau refuses to let her drive him to soccer. As he says, she nearly misses the mailbox and turns in front of a car going to the practice fields. Parker Schenecker said he knew that his wife and his daughter had a strained relationship. I told my ex-wife that she needed to be the adult in the relationship. She was resorting to childish tactics with a child. It wasn't getting her anywhere. We tried family counseling. Calix was even going to attend a boarding school. Parker said he never had any indication she was homicidal or that she would ever harm the children. He explained that 2 or 3 days before he was deployed to Qatar, he asked Julie, "Are you going to be okay with me being gone for a few days? If there's a problem, I can ask my mother or someone else to come in." She looked me square in the eye and said, "I got this." At the trial, she said through tears, "I understand that there are people who are affected by this. Or maybe a child looked at their mommy and said, 'Mommy, are you ever going to shoot me?' I know this could happen and I apologize for what happened, what I did. I take responsibility. I was there. I know I shot my son and daughter. I don't know why, but I have time to try to understand that." In her journal, Julie wrote to Parker, "I did always love you and wanted the best for you. You're the best dad. I've learned so much from you. We have 2 beautiful children. I'm sorry I've taken that all away from you." Julie said she believes her children are in heaven and that Jesus will protect them until she and their loved ones join them. The final entry in Julie's journal said, "I have really lost my mind. I'm so sad, my 2 babies." After 2 hours of deliberation, the jury returned a verdict. Guilty on 2 counts of first-degree murder. Julie Schenecker was sentenced to 2 concurrent life sentences without the possibility of parole. As the judge read the sentence, Julie began to cry. Parker Schenecker said, "Today's decision, for many reasons, gives my family a great sense of relief." He also announced the formation of a foundation in honor of Calix and Bo, dedicated to helping teens through the arts and athletics. It offers scholarships to students who embody the values his children stood for: creativity, discipline, kindness, and resilience. Calix, with her love for art and literature, and Bo, with his enthusiasm for sports and connection with others, now serve as symbols of inspiration for youth across Florida. Through the foundation, their names continue to make a difference. Calix once wrote in an essay, "In life, the journey proves to be more meaningful than the end, and the way you live exposes your own true personality." Parker also became an advocate for mental health awareness, urging families not to ignore warning signs and pushing for better support systems. He has emphasized the importance of speaking out before it's too late. He also said, "Hug your children every chance you get. Draw your loved ones closer to you so that you may love and be loved." Following her conviction, Julie Schenecker was transferred to Lowell Correctional Institution in Marion County, Florida, a facility known for housing some of the state's most high-profile female inmates. She is ineligible for release and is expected to live out the remainder of her life in prison. Since her conviction, Schenecker has sought a new trial, arguing that her defense failed to present important evidence or bring forward certain witnesses, including herself, who might have strengthened her insanity plea. A judge ultimately denied the request. According to FBI statistics, around 450 children are killed by their parents each year in the U.S., with biological parents responsible for the vast majority of filicides. Mental illness is a significant factor in many of these cases. Sometimes, the greatest warning signs are the ones we overlook, and the most important thing we can do is pay attention. Please share this video, it may save somebody's life, and subscribe to my channel if you want to watch more chilling cases.